Hey guys, and welcome back to this episode of Sounds Like NYC. Today, our guest is a vocalist, oud player, and composer currently working on a new genre, of world chamber pop. Her compositions blend Balkan, Arabic, Hindustani, sorry, Hindustani, classical, pop soul, and African music styles in order to make her own brand of music. You can find her on Instagram at Shelly Voice and her website, shellyvoice.com. Please welcome Shelley Thomas.
Hi.
Hey.
Good morning.
Hey. How's your day been so far?
It's going great.
Awesome. It was like raining earlier, but that wasn't a problem. I like the rain, so it's not anything too bad. But yeah. So you've recently released a video for your new single, if I'm not mistaken.
Yes.
Your single, if I'm not mistaken, I forgot the name. I'm so sorry.
It's called Mirror.
Mirror, yeah. I was actually listening to it earlier, and I don't know, it's very interesting. Like, yeah, I mean, do you want to talk about it? How the song came to be, the lyrics and whatnot?
Sure, yeah. The single came out end of last month, and the video came out this month on Vivo. So it's called Mirror, and it's inspired by the concept of the shadow and shadow self, and going into your shadow to integrate into a more unified whole as a human being. So looking at that, and the piano motif, I guess, is inspired by some Chopin preludes, and then I have the drums, the kanun, upright bass, and vocal harmonies. And I guess I had this lyric line stuck in my head for like a couple years, and I made a voice memo, and then finally after the song was done, I found the right place for it. So the composition process is kind of interesting like that. Sometimes you have something, you don't know where to put it until it comes together. Yeah. I mean, personally, I definitely understand kind of like having like a instant of kind of like inspiration, and like quickly grabbing your phone to like record the kind of like the melody, because I probably have like 50 voice memos somewhere like on Google Drive of just that, and I don't know when I'm going to complete those because I'm already working on music, but like that's like it's good to document whether or not you're going to use them. But like, speaking of Mirror, I was like listening to it, even though it is kind of like based in kind of like classical world music, chamber music. Like, it was giving me a lot of like instrumental metal tones, like kind of like vibes. And Mirror and your other single, I believe it's called Cancer Moon. Yeah, they both remind me of this one metal composer called David Misi Maxim. And metal? Yeah. Oh, okay. Yeah. Yeah. I mean, it's just kind of like the dynamics and like the instrumentation, not even the instrumentation, but the tones of your music kind of like remind me of him, and just kind of like the general vibe of a lot of like modern instrumental metal. So like, that's awesome. Yeah, it's really cool. But personally, where do most of your influences come from, you think? Well, dynamics are very important just in response to that. So I try to have a lot of emotional evocation with the strings, and make arrangements that feel lush and help you kind of access some emotional point, and then move forward into a catharsis from that. Yeah. But I've studied a lot of styles of music, from piano to, everything that you listed earlier, West African drumming from Ghana, Bulgarian choral music, Western choral music, a lot of Arabic music, and Balkan and Ukrainian. And I also listen to a lot of electronic music. And then pop and soul has been a part of my journey too since I was young. So I kind of draw the influences from all of that, but eventually it just comes through, like the inspiration just comes through, which a lot of artists talk about.
So speaking like So you went to school for like world music, correct?
Yes.
So how was kind of
Vocalist.
like studying world music, and what was the process of that? You know, studying world music and finally realizing your own personal voice as a
Yeah.
musician, as a composer.
Yeah, great question.
Yeah.
Well, I can say that I graduated in 2008, and
Mm-hmm.
it took me 12 years to find my own voice.
Yeah, yeah. What do you think? I mean, yeah. So, why do you think it took so long for you to, you know, discover your own voice, and like, what do you think that means for you? Like, what do you think your personal voice as a composer is?
You know, I identify as a global citizen. I'm very
Mm-hmm.
interested in culture, language, ritual around the world, and the purpose of the human voice,
Mm-hmm.
and the different types of ornamentation and scales that we can use,
Mm-hmm.
and also the spiritual significance of the voice and music.
Mm-hmm.
So I composed and wrote songs when I was a teenager, and then after I discovered all of this world music at Cal Arts, I just wanted to sit back and listen and just absorb, and felt like a sponge. I didn't really have anything to say. Like, I wanted more life experience, more knowledge, more travel, more pain, more everything.
Yeah.
Before, so I studied a lot with over 40 teachers, and really dove deep into this music and traveling and exploring and understanding until about 3 years ago or so. I just felt that spark of inspiration to start writing,
Yeah.
and then it kind of flipped out. So there's that teacher-student thing that happens, because
Yeah.
I teach voice lessons, but I also have a student mentality where I'm always learning, and we can kind of keep that cyclical
Yeah.
shape happening.
Oh, okay, I see. So, like, a part of your travels, because if I do remember correctly, you've been to 40 countries, right?
No.
Oh, oh no, that was your, how many, 15 was it?
About 17
About 17
countries.
countries, sorry about it. Yeah, yeah. So was that a part of your curriculum back in college, or was that like a personal journey?
No, it's more personal journeys. I've also toured with Bulgarian Voices Trio and Black Sea Hotel, and a few other music projects that I
Yeah.
used to work with.
Okay, I see. So what do you think is the most important lesson you've like learned through like all your travels?
That's like, what's the meaning of life?
Yeah.
That we don't need much to be happy, but we need connection.
Okay, I see. Interesting. Yeah. So like, okay, yeah. So like, out of like all the countries you've been to, what's been your most favorite country to like explore and like perform music in?
They're all so different,
Yeah.
and I have so many places left to go. And but I guess I really enjoyed Lebanon, because I love Arabic music and have dedicated a lot of time to it. So I connected a lot with that culture, and performing there at this place, Onomatopoeia in Beirut.
Yeah. Oh, so like, yeah. So like Lebanon, how is it different from like America in terms of like culture and even kind of like musical expression, or like even just like performing there? Like, how are the audiences in Lebanon compared to like over here?
I mean, I think at the end of the day, people are people everywhere, and people love music everywhere. So it's up to the artist to deliver something authentic and genuine with their heart and their passion. No matter where you are, audiences are going to connect with it.
Yeah. Yeah. Okay. Uh, so like one of the things that I noticed when you were like I think it was in your Mirror music video. Which one was the one? It was between Cancer Moon and like Mirror, but like you were like playing your ode. Like which one of the music videos?
That's Cancer Moon.
Cancer Moon, yeah. So in Cancer Moon, you were like singing and like playing your ode, and like one question that popped up in my mind is kind of like, how do you approach kind of like writing for ode and like performing for ode compared to like piano or like guitar?
Yeah, great question. I picked up the oud about 5 years ago to start accompanying myself singing Arabic music. And then as soon as I started playing it, I found that it had a voice it wanted to express. So a lot of musicians you'll hear talk about their connection with their instrument, and that happened as well. So like I was saying earlier, the creative process could happen any multitude of ways. Sometimes I'm falling asleep in my bed at night and I'll have a song come to me and I have to get up and go to Sibelius, music notation software program, to write it out real quick. Sometimes a melody comes with oud as I'm playing, and then I'll start there. Or sometimes I'll sit down at the piano, like I did for Mir, and discover the melody there.
Yeah.
So, or with the voice memo, like I said.
Yeah.
So it's like kind of, you just pick a direction and go with it and try to listen for that inspiration, and then try to do the service to that piece of work by letting it blossom in its fullness.
Yeah, because as a guitarist myself, kind of like the oud is like very familiar, but also very different. So could you just give me kind of like a rundown of, because you could have picked, because I would assume that like maybe guitar would have been easier to like learn or like whatever. So like, yeah, can you kind of like explain in like a music theory sense, kind of like the oud and its like place in the type of music you write? Or?
Sure. I have studied guitar as well from when I was 17 or so, and the main difference is that the oud is fretless, so it can play microtones and quarter tones, which they have in Arabic music, which is like splitting in between the keys of the piano.
Yeah.
So there's many more colors to play with, and I love that. Like for me, with a sensitive ear, it's something that set my imagination on fire, really, for composition. And the oud is an old instrument that predates the lute, the European lute, and the guitar. So it's just shaped like with a boat body, and then a curved neck, and it has 11 strings, and it's fretless.
Yeah. Okay. Are there like any techniques you can kind of like transfer from like guitar to oud and like oud to guitar, or are they too separate?
You put your fingers on the
That's
fretboard.
all you need. Okay. No, perfect. Yeah. So like speaking of kind of like more kind of like the relationship of like guitar and oud and kind of like all of that. You also do live streams, correct? So is it just you and the oud and just like improvising? Wow.
I also play a loop station, the Boss RC300 3-track loop station.
Yeah.
So I have frame drums and then a little rick, like a Middle Eastern percussion.
Yeah.
So I play percussion and oud with the looping and mess around with that.
That's so cool. Yeah, because coming from kind of like a classical or kind of like a conservatory, I guess, background, like what was the process of like of doing like, of like learning how to like improv?
Good question. I mean, Cal Arts, I wouldn't call it a conservatory. It's a private institute, but they didn't have a conservatory mentality. They're much more open-minded and encourage artists to explore for themselves. And they had great jazz and world music and classical programs together. So, but improvising, I think it's about confidence and clarity of ideas and connection to yourself more than anything else. And it was actually one of my vocal teachers, Ghada Shber from Lebanon, who taught me how to really improvise, because for a while I was on a very set track of memorizing repertoire, trying to do it perfectly, and then making mistakes and it's a little rigid. So, but she taught me to think of like the fingers, like 1, 2, 3, 4 as intervals, and then you can change and jump in between them. And use your voice to change the shape and the timbre like of a tone. Like it could be really full, like oh, or more thin and light, like
Wow, yeah. That was amazing. Yeah. Wow. So you mostly studied improvising in terms of voice, not as much like instrument.
I studied a lot of let's see. within the different systems, they each have improvisation. So, like, I go to Simon Shaheen's Arabic music retreat every year and listen to the master teachers there playing oud and other instruments, and studied with different oud teachers. But it kind of applies, there's different techniques for each instrument, for the violin versus the oud versus the voice. You can't do the exact same things. But from my understanding, instruments are always trying to emulate the human voice.
Yeah. Yeah. That's like definitely one of the things I've been learning on guitar lately, kind of like getting away from like the boxes that guitarists put themselves in, trying to emulate other guitar players, and just that whole process has been like very freeing for me, because things like little things like, trills and slides and stuff like that. I mean, guitarists do them, but like once you start trying to like emulate kind of like singing and improvisation, that's when the real fun starts. And like,
Right.
yeah, it's definitely like going forward, I definitely want to start kind of like emulating, or like trying to like transpose kind of like vocal melodies that I just find online, and like something that you just did right now.
Yeah.
I definitely want to see if I could go back and kind of like try and like emulate and like learn from that little improv piece that you just sung.
Right,
So like,
exactly. So, like, I spent years just listening and absorbing and building my encyclopedia of music and of motifs and musical idioms from great singers and great musicians. And then you build that toolbox, and then you have more to work with in your own palette, and you decide what artistic direction you want to take it.
Yeah, awesome. So if you want, we could just take like a quick break to like listen to like one of your singles. Is there like a single specifically that you want us to take a listen to?
Sure, I'd love to hear Mirror, the new single.
Awesome.
Into the tree made of oak, with outstretched leaves and rings to hold, into the moon, oh, and how she'll glow if she would only.
Hey guys, welcome back to this episode of Sounds Like NYC. And you have just listened to Mirror. And yeah, let's talk about kind of like, so specifically like a more general question, but it like also relates to Mirror, is like, do you compose everything by yourself, or is it kind of more like you like have like a general idea and then you have like other musicians kind of come on and like contribute their ideas? Or what is the what is the composition process for you on like a regular basis?
Yeah. For this project, I do have a very specific vision. All the notes are written out in a score, all the drum notes. It's not really improvisational music. It's very specific. Like I said, just gets in my head and won't get out, so I have to get it out.
Okay, I see. Were you like ever in kind of like a musical situation where it was kind of like spur of the moment, everybody's just like throwing out ideas and just bouncing off of each other, or?
Absolutely. I mean, there's many different contexts for music, and it depends on the vibe and what musicians are around and what you guys are playing, what repertoire. So I love improvising, a special vocal improvisation with other singers, and yeah, there's definitely a time and place for that as well.
Has there like ever been a moment where you just like completely screwed up, kind of like in the middle of improving, or?
Screwed up?
Yeah, just like completely dropped.
I mean, everyone gets lost and makes mistakes, but then you find your way back, and
yeah. Was there like a specific kind of like standout moment, or like a specific memory of that, or just?
My entire life until I learned to lighten up and let go of that perfectionism. Yeah, which I think is really important for artists.
I mean, speaking of perfectionism, like, do you think you're like lately in terms of music, like what lessons musically do you think you've been learning lately, if you know any at all?
What lessons?
Yeah.
Not to take myself so seriously.
Yeah.
To learn to get in touch with that inner child.
Yeah.
The playfulness, the creativity, life in New York is intense and challenging for
Yeah.
everyone, especially artists.
Yeah.
You have to get a good business sense about you. You have to focus on all these other things, and it's easy for the creativity and the music to go out the window. But you always want to come back to that core essence.
How long have you been in New York City, by the way?
11 years.
Wow. Oh, so like right after you graduated.
Yeah.
Ah. So why do you come here and not stay over in like Los Angeles?
You know, my boyfriend at the time wanted to move. He was also a musician. And my sisters were born here. My parents used to live here. They were both artists. So I felt like I had nothing really keeping me in LA, and I wanted to develop this expansive travel mindset where I see myself traveling the world throughout my life. So why not just start there and kind of expand upon my parents' creative legacy that they left for me.
Okay, I see. So how was your first month or your first year in, New York City? Like, was it like a very jarring experience, or did you have it pretty like easy, or like, tell me about that.
I'm definitely sensitive energetically and to all the external stimuli and the noise, and so it took some adjustment getting used to that and just the proximity of everyone here. But I also thought it was so inspiring, and I love the diversity and the ideas and the projects and the opportunities. So there's no place like it.
Yeah, because like definitely New York City kind of like puts you in a very hustle mode, because if you can't afford the rent, then you can't, and then everything else like doesn't make sense, and like compared to like Los Angeles, California as a whole, it definitely seems like, I mean, there's still that, gotta like succeed, like you still have to do something, but it's like very much more relaxed. I mean, that's kind of like the general vibe I think like most people have. But compared to your like life in like California, compared to your life in like New York, like which one do you think has like made you grow more as a person?
I think we all grow no matter where we are, as long as we're open to the lessons.
Okay, definitely, Are there like any like favorite spots for you in New York City to kind of like draw inspiration from as a musician or just as like a person?
Yeah, well, I love nature, so our fake nature is Prospect Park, which is very beautiful, and it's enough to get by. But I definitely need like the connection with deep nature every few months. And then I love going to coffee shops, or I did before COVID. Now I sit outside when I can, but Poetica Cafe in Windsor Terrace, Paper Coffee Shop in Midtown. And then music venues, obviously, Barbet, Strom. I love going to see live music.
Like, where are those venues? I've never heard of them.
Barbet is in Brooklyn, and Drome is in the East Village. And they're two, like, venues with a lot of world music.
Oh, okay. Have you ever been to Shapeshifter Labs?
Yeah.
Awesome. Yeah, I used to, like, do, like, an internship over there for, like, a couple of months. Actually, before COVID came and kind of, like... destroyed everything.
Space.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah. I mean, so like let's talk about COVID a bit if you want. Like how has life for you been through self quarantine and stuff like that? Like what was like the first few months of COVID for you?
It was definitely a shock at first, and then it took a period of adjustment. But at the end of the day, we as artists have a lot of work to do. And we're not just going to give up and stop just because the world is looking different. So I tried to find the next steps, and I have my album to work on. I'm working towards creating a full album, 9 more songs to release. So I'm working on those scores and really try to just keep my head down and focus on the future with a positive vision.
Yeah, I can't wait to hear, the rest of the album, because, like, these 2 songs, like I said before, there's, like, a strange connection for, me at least, to that and just to, like, instrumental music in a sense where, like, it, it's, like, obviously telling a story in the sense that it's, like, very, very cinematic, sorry, So, like, was because I know Cal Arts is like mostly known for like it's like animation program and stuff like that. So did you ever study kind of like composing for film, or did like this whole kind of like story structure of your music is it just like a natural consequence of like composing, or yeah, tell me more about that.
That's definitely the direction I'm going.
Yeah.
And this music is intended for film. So,
Oh,
yes.
yeah.
I'm interested in sync licensing and composing and working with larger and larger ensembles, chamber group and orchestra.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Have you ever composed for like a film before, or
Not yet,
not yet?
but I will be.
Yeah, I mean, especially with the amount of quality that you're producing, like I am definitely so in love with your music. Like, it's something familiar, but also something new. So I suggest any fans of like instrumental rock, instrumental metal, please check out her music, because it's so good. Like I love it personally. Like I never really listened to orchestrated music just because it doesn't really pull me in. You know, I was kind of forced to study kind of like that stuff back in like college, and it just never resonated with me. But the first time when I like listened to Cancer Moon and Mirror, like something just like connected with me, and like I really appreciate that. Just like, you know, artists kind of like using something old or using something familiar but putting it in like a new light. So
Yeah.
thank you for that.
Thank you.
Yeah, awesome. So do you have any closing remarks, any like advice to to composers or musicians in general, or?
Oh gosh. I guess on that note, in response to what you were just saying, I love chamber music and I love classical music, but I don't like the pretension associated with it. So I tried to bridge that world with the world music and the pop and soul with a very informed study of each genre, to try to make it more accessible and, grooving with the feel is important, and style, and also about the emotion, like I said, so evoking emotion, which makes it music that's perfect for film or sync. And really trying to show these little pieces of culture and like snippets of a kaleidoscope of life that we share together through my sound.
Yeah.
So I think the advice I would give to other composers is you have to name yourself, like Julia Cameron said. No one else is going to do it for you. And the more you rely on, external recognition or people pleasing, you're not going to find that stability within yourself.
Yeah.
So it's up to you to create your work and get the ego out of the way so the work can just come. And don't worry about what everyone else thinks, and let all those fears and doubts just fall away, because they're always going to be there. We're always going to have them. We're artists.
Yeah.
But at the end of the day, we're making art that makes the world a more beautiful place.
Yeah. And you are definitely making the world a more beautiful place. So thank you, Shelley Thomas.
Thank you for having me.